We need to be paying attention to physical safety and hazards and all those kinds of things and putting the right training in place there. But the reality is, as a construction worker, is 6 times more likely to die by suicide than an accident on the job. So we need to be investing in the mental health safety of our teams just as much as our physical safety as well. And there's no reason they shouldn't work side by side with each other, because we know it's just more productive as well.
Why is this not a thing? Why are we only talking about this now, really? You know, you see in other industries, they're really leading the charge, but construction, is it because of the stigma that's involved, a heavily male-dominated industry, and we think it's not an issue? We don't like talking about our feelings. What is it? Because it's ridiculous. It's like we've met with Mates in Construction a number of times, and we've been trying to help get the brand Mates in Construction out there into that resi thing. But for me, I still haven't done the training. You've done the training. I was saying before, be more like Regent Homes, be less like Kookaburra. We're just full of shit. We're just talking here because I don't have time. Too busy, but it might be too late. So, I'm giving myself a massive kick up the arse, and any other residential builder out there as well. You should do the same. I don't understand it.
Welcome to the Pro Builder podcast. We will be speaking with many different industry professionals to discuss some of the current news, challenges and trends within the building industry. I'm your host, Steve Walker, co-owner of Kookaburra Homes, South Australia's most professional medium home builder.
I just want to offer a trigger warning for anybody that's listening to this podcast today. We will be mentioning the word suicide a lot. We are having a frank conversation about suicide. So if this distresses you in any way, shape or form, or you just want to debrief, you can give Mates a call on 1300 642 111.
Amanda, welcome to the Pro Builder podcast.
Thanks, Steve.
And then also Ryan, you're a regular on here now, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me back.
I'm very excited today because I've got a co-host, so I don't have to do all the talking. Amanda, you're from Mates in Construction. I'll let you talk about your role and your responsibility there, and then we'll go into what Mates in Construction do. Ryan, this came about because you reached out to me and told me about Mates in Construction. Funny enough, I was already having a conversation with Mates in Construction and the awesome work that they already do within the industry, both residential but more so commercial as well. And I thought, we both thought what an amazing idea to have Amanda on to talk about what Mates in Construction do. And in the year 2021, it's a conversation that needs to be had, and it's not being had enough. So, Amanda, welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me and thinking of us to come along. So, yeah, I'm a case manager and field officer with Mates. So I've got a bit of a dual role with Mates. So I offer support and also do training. So I suppose it's really relevant for me now to jump into what Mates actually is, to explain that and what my job role is. So at Mates, we're a industry-specific charity. We have a specific focus on suicide prevention because unfortunately we do have higher numbers across construction than any other working sectors in the country. But we are really mental health focused on all angles and we do all that stuff for free for our industry.
Yeah, wow. So when was Mates in Construction established? How long have you guys been around for?
Yeah, so here in SA we kicked off in about 2012, but we started in late 2007, early 2008 up in Queensland, and sort of fast forward 14 years later, we're now in most states in the country and over in New Zealand for the last sort of year and a half or so.
Yeah, great. It's like I said before, it's a really important conversation to have, and if you read into Mates in Construction and the work that you guys do, you talk about prevention a lot, and we need to start having the conversation where it's not too late. And Ryan, you've recognised that at Regent Homes, and the guys at Regent Homes have recognised that as well. And I think you had a training session as early as yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon, and. Look, from my point of view, today is really about just starting a conversation. I was only recently introduced to Mates in Construction, and somewhat I'm a little bit embarrassed about that. I've been in the industry for 15 years and yet never really even knew that Mates in Construction was there to support our industry. As an industry, we spend a lot of time focusing on other important things like safety of our people and our work sites and that. But, of course, mental health, as we all know, is a silent killer. And up until very recently, I wasn't even aware that we had a company like Mates in Construction that was there available to us to support our people and support our industry. And so, when I first saw your business that was available, it was just an immediate sort of need that I felt that not only for Regent Homes, but for the opportunity to be able to look at how we could support mates in construction by way of getting the message out there. Because it was made very clear in the early conversations that residential, specifically in South Australia, has been an area that you've struggled to get that message out. And so that really, for me, that resonated with me, because obviously that's where I've spent most of my career, and felt that not only is it an amazing support and conversation that you want to have with people in our industry, but how can we, and I guess this is where Steve and I felt that we could collaborate, and this is, I guess, is a good starting point to start that conversation, how we can help with our own influencing and our own networks to be able to get you in front of the right people to continue that conversation and make a difference in the industry. And hopefully if we can help in that, then that makes me feel good. But more importantly, it's about how we can put things in place to prevent what is a horrific set of numbers that you'll probably talk a little bit more about shortly.
Yeah, and then I want to thank you, Ryan, because it is important. We want to get into front of the residential sector. I mean, being involved in the construction sector here in SA for sort of the last 8 or 9 years, we've done majority of our work within commercial and civil sectors, and you know, it's unfortunate that we haven't had more of a footprint in the resi sector, but that's where we want to be as well. We want everyone in our industry, regardless of what size company they work for, whether it's a sole trader, we want everyone to realise they have access to not just the training side of mates, but the support, most importantly, more than anything. So I suppose there's a good opportunity for me to talk about the two different sides of mates and before we jump into the numbers. But what mates really aims to do, as you said, Ryan, yesterday we came out to Regent and did one of our levels of training, our general awareness training, which takes about 40 minutes. We've got 3 different levels of training that we offer. The first 2 levels completely free of charge. And they're really about equipping people within our industry to be able to have the skills to identify if a mate of theirs is struggling. Because what we're really aiming to do is build a community that can keep each other safe. So have the skills to have the confidence to have those conversations that we sometimes need to have, or sometimes unfortunately a bit scared to have because we're not sure what to say. So that's where Mates comes in, you know, offering those skills free of charge to people within our industry to look after each other essentially. And we back that up with the support that you mentioned as well. We do that through a 1300 number that's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have case managers like myself. There's 2 of us here now in SA that can work with somebody one-on-one, whether it's a business, a team or an individual, for whatever's going on for them. You know, we are suicide prevention focused, and for a good reason, and we'll talk about the numbers in a minute, but really we want early intervention to be our thing. You know, we want to get in front of people before they've hit that crisis point. So, you know, if it's a couple that are having relationship difficulties, or maybe you've got a teenager at home that's been bullied at school and needs to speak with a counsellor, Mates can facilitate that, and we pay for it all. So it's completely free, it's completely confidential, and we want everyone across our industry to realise it doesn't take any kind of membership. You don't have to have done training. Everyone in our industry, regardless of job title or company, is eligible for that support. So I think that's the main message we want to get out there is we're here to support everyone in our industry and your immediate family as well. So this service is available to your immediate family.
So anyone out there listening today that is struggling, they can pick up the phone.
Absolutely.
It's not going to cost them anything.
Not
the
at all.
support's there.
Yeah, so we've got a 1300 number, which is 1300 642 111. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it doesn't matter if it's, you know, a one-off chat that somebody just needs to vent and get some stuff out, or maybe they know that they've got some addiction issues or a relationship issue and they want to connect with a professional for some ongoing support. We'll facilitate that and make it happen. And like I said, all free.
Yeah, we were just having a coffee before, weren't we? And we were talking about, you know, a number of different things. And I brought up the fact I was thinking this morning that, you know, everyone knows someone now. And I couldn't work out whether that was a good or a bad thing, but everyone knows someone that's affected by suicide. Or, you know, whether it's themselves or someone else that's going through some challenges. We all know people now, and I thought, oh, it's really sad. You know, this affects so many people now. But is it actually good that we know now, you know, that we're having the conversation? You know, we're doing a podcast talking about, you know, suicide prevention. We're letting people know that there is help out there. There's great organisations like yourself. So we also spoke about younger people and how they're affected by it as well, but obviously it affects everyone, young, old, women, you know, women, men, you know. So do you want to run us through, for the people that don't know, some of those stats out there? Because they are quite alarming when you break them down.
Yeah, well, when we're talking in an Australian context, the newest figures, 2020 suicide data was only released about a month ago, and we lost 3,139 people to suicide in this country. Mm-hmm. Now, they're just the ones we know about. We know that underreporting is you know, an issue around suicide, so there's probably a lot more than that. But just of the ones we know of, you know, that works out to be one person every 2 hours and 48 minutes in this country dies by suicide.
Can I just ask you, when you, just to touch on that point where, you know, the ones that we know about, because if we're going to get real, there's, you know, from what I understand, you know, a car crash or a fatality, it may be of someone trying to harm themselves and, you know, causing suicide, but it's put down as a fatality. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Yeah, we call that underreporting. So it's those ones, you know, it's very strict criteria that the coroner needs to meet to be able to call a death a suicide. So if it's not clear, it's not going to be ruled as one. So it might be, you know, there's single vehicle accidents or drownings, drug overdoses, all those kinds of things that might occur where we may suspect it could have been suicide, but if we're not sure, it'll be ruled as an accident. So, you know, research conservatively estimates that to be 20% are unreported.
And do you know the numbers in the construction industry?
Yeah, so we're still losing one person every second day to suicide in this country, which is in our industry, which is insane. There was a big study done recently of 17 years of suicide data, and it showed that of the South Australians that died by suicide in that time, 1 in every 4 was a construction worker, which is, you know, crazy. We are at our young ones. You mentioned the young people in our industry. They're 3 times more likely to die by suicide than other young working Australians.
Why is that, do you think, Amanda?
Look, I think we're all facing the same kind of pressures in life, you know, relationship issues and all those kinds of things that we know sort of go part and parcel with poor mental health. But in construction, we do have some unique issues that we face as well. So, you know, job insecurity is a big one. We know that, you know, projects wrap up and people aren't necessarily secured for their next employment. So it's that constant, you know, living in uncertainty, which we've all had to deal with in the last 2 years with COVID. It's sort of ramped that up a lot. I think, you know, we know that work-life balance is really hard to achieve in this industry. It's commonplace now to have 6-day working weeks, 12-hour working days. It's just the normal now. So I think these extra pressures on top of what everybody else in this country is dealing with might be that point that tips somebody to the edge. We know that suicide's very rarely about one thing. It's typically when it's problem after problem just building up, and everybody has, you know, a limit or a tipping point, we call it. So I think that's...
And we talked a little bit as well while we were having a coffee earlier that, you know, when you, certainly with tradespeople, they generally leave school. They don't go to, generally they might go to TAFE, working on the job. But they're still quite young. They haven't built up a lot of life skills, and you know they're put into the workforce, and they'll obviously go from earning no money to, you know, can be earning quite reasonable money quite quickly, depending sort of what hours they're doing. And so they change their life quite dramatically, and they live to the maximum of their means. And so slight corrections either way, whether it be work dries up, whether it be they lose their job, can have catastrophic type ramifications on that, and they haven't yet, they're still very young, and they haven't got the life skills to be able to process that or help work through it, all the channels or outlets to support them and work through that. Is that one of the things that you think has some impact on why we see so much of our young construction workforce making up that statistic?
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, we're plucking these kids out of high school and straight into apprenticeships and going from earning no money to having a bit of coin in their pocket every week, but not necessarily having the skills of knowing what to do with it. And then when it does all go wrong, there's no sort of opportunity for resilience to have built or for connection to those supports, which Mates tries to tackle that with something we call life skills toolbox training, which we aim at apprentices. It's a 2-day program. Part of it is suicide prevention training, but majority of it is all those things that we really should be learning in school. You know, financial literacy skills and just having conversations around super and what that looks like, and team building and communication and those kinds of things. So that's awesome, but it's really about promoting the fact that, okay, if things do start to get a little bit out of shape, there is somewhere to turn for that support. And I suppose, you know, having opportunities to have conversations like this with the both of you to normalise this discussion. You mentioned before, Steve, that it's something we don't talk about, and then Ryan, you said sort of that silent killer, and it needs to be something we get a bit more comfortable talking about because that reduces the shame of people being able to stick their hand up. But I suppose that's a big part of where Mates differs from a lot of other programs and supports out there is we work on a help offering model rather than a help seeking model. And what I mean by that is most great organisations that are out there rely on that person to make the phone call and get the help themselves. And what Mates tries to do with the training side of the organisation is train up that community to notice when somebody's struggling and offer that support.
I think that's a really important point because one of the things that we mentioned that we at Regent Homes, we went through the first sort of stage of training yesterday afternoon, and we did that for all of our staff. But it was really interesting on the back of that, and it's about identifying those sort of early indicators. And I suspect that, when you are dealing with some challenges in your life, it might be really quite confronting to pick up a 1300 number. But in construction sector, as we know, we've got critical people in our team, like supervisors who are in our construction teams that are out dealing with hundreds of people. A lot of those can be young people. And I suspect that there's a lot more conversations that are happening there, but it's about identifying where those concerning conversations are. And it was really one of the things that's stuck with me after that session yesterday was the openness of the conversation that our construction team was having about how much they feel their role is very much like a counsellor. So without them really knowing it, they're performing these roles already, but not necessarily with having the skills or equipped with the awareness of what to look for. And I think that's what excites me about what, as an industry, we could be doing. Certainly that's what we see as a responsible thing to do from Regent Homes. But as an industry, I think that's the place we could be sitting where we're already having those conversations is about equipping ourselves with the skills to be able to identify when there's things there that are being said or not being said that potentially might be the early stages. And as you've mentioned, it's getting these things identified early that gives you the best opportunity of preventing a catastrophic result. And I think our people and our industry has such a major role to play in that because those conversations are taking place every single day. And you're a long step removed from that, but we're on the ground every day. And I think that's absolutely what's resonated with me is how we can turn just what might be an innocent conversation, but try and identify how that we can potentially get in early and support people that need that extra help.
Absolutely, yeah. And Mates, we pride ourselves on being here to offer support no matter what. We're happy if there's, an accident on site, we will come out and make sure that your workforce is supported, that everybody feels okay, there's an opportunity to debrief. But like you said, Ryan, the people on the ground are the ones that are going to notice these things first. So I think we're in a society now that, it's becoming more and more open to have these conversations, which is fantastic. But we're expecting a lot more of our people and we need to be able to equip them in the best possible way. So it's not taking a negative effect on their mental health to be able to offer help to people. So we need to be able to set people up with those skills and the confidence to be able to use those skills. So it's awesome to have Regent Homes on board and hopefully, we'll get a few connectors and assist people out as well and have those extra skills to take that conversation a little bit further.
Absolutely, because we've spoken before about, I know in Regent Homes and Kookaburra, you'd be exactly the same, Steve. We put an extraordinary amount of focus on work health and safety. The industry expects that and some builders go above and beyond, and I think we both work very hard in that space for our building companies to keep our people safe. But in the whole time that I've been running building companies, we've put very little focus on this topic.
And the interesting thing about that, Ryan, is, rightly so, we need to be paying attention to physical safety and hazards and all those kinds of things and putting the right training in place there. But the reality is, as a construction worker, is 6 times more likely to die by suicide than an accident on the job. So we need to be investing in the mental health safety of our teams just as much as our physical safety as well. And there's no reason they shouldn't work side by side with each other because we know it's just more productive as well.
Why is this not a thing? Why are we only talking about this now, really? You see in other industries, they're really leading the charge, but construction, is it because of the stigma that's involved, a heavily male-dominated industry, and we think it's not an issue, we don't like talking about our feelings? What is it? Because it's ridiculous. It's like we've met with Mates in Construction a number of times, and we've been trying to help get the brand Mates in Construction out there into that resi thing. But for me, I still haven't done the training. You've done the training. I was saying before, be more like Regent Homes, be less like Kookaburra. We're just full of shit. We're just talking here because I don't have time. I'm too busy, but it might be too late. So, I'm giving myself a massive kick up the arse, and any other residential builder out there as well. You should do the same. I don't understand it. So, we catch up, a few of us guys, and it started off talking about business, and then, we tell each other we love each other. We send each other messages saying, love you, mate. And it's turned into talking about life and relationships, and you just don't know whose life you might be saving by starting a conversation and having one. I'm getting upset now, right? Because it's just stupid. I haven't done anything, and I'll do something about it, I promise. But is it the stigma that's attached?
I think it's a big part of it, but you touched on something else as well, Steve. We're all busier than ever.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is run off its feet at the moment, just trying to keep up with demand. So it's understandable when people say they're busy, but I suppose it's about that priority. And we know there's a research, not just in the construction industry, but across industry, to show that, having those mentally healthy workplaces leads to increased productivity. So it's good for the business, not just, the right thing to do, but it's good for the business as well. But I do think it does have a bit to do with stigma. We know in part 76% of those 3,139 people that died by suicide in this country were male. Okay, 76%.
Yep.
So we're dealing with an industry where we are 86.7%, I think is the most recent stats, male dominated. Okay, so it stands to reason that we do have more suicides in this industry. That could be one reason. And we know traditionally we're a tough industry. We're stoic, we push through, we harden up, get the job done. When it comes to mental health, that doesn't work. We know that. We look at the stats and we can see that. So It's about, like I said, these conversations are going to be breaking down those stigmas. And I am, in the 3.5 years I've been with Mates, I've seen a culture shift already in the industry, which is fantastic. And we've got sort of what we call mental health champions out there on sites, really pushing the program to be there and linking people in with support. And if it wasn't for people like that were actively changing the way that we talk about mental health, and you guys having this conversation on your podcast, actively talking about mental health, we would be in the same position we were 10 years ago. But we're not. We're slowly getting there. But, I think I mentioned to you guys when we were having coffee, we're a workforce in the Australian construction industry of 1.1 million people. Now, Mates has trained 230,000, which is amazing. It's great. But that's scratching the surface. We've got a long way to go. So everyone should be afforded these skills and support.
I just want to go back to one point you made before, because I think it's really important. We talked about, obviously, we're always too busy, and of course we can always be doing, we're always prioritising where we spend our time and that. And Steve, you've made the point that obviously you haven't, prioritised this as much as you're obviously going to moving forward, because it's obviously starting to emotionally resonate with you as well. But I think that, what I think about is that at the moment, this industry is dealing with some of the biggest challenges it's ever gone through. We're dealing with supply issues. We're dealing with major margin erosion issues. We're dealing with lots of uncertainty, which is causing lots of anxiety within the construction business. It's causing lots of anxiety for our customers. And so there's huge amounts of tension and lots of stress. And I would arguably saying that now's the right time to be doubling down on this, because we've just gone through COVID, and we're going through COVID. I want to ask you in a minute how much that's changed things, because I just generally feel that's probably has had an impact. But the construction industry for the next 2 years at least has got an extraordinary amount of work to process nationally. And, there's a huge... People that I know that have been in the industry far longer than I are constantly saying to me that they've never seen the industry so difficult. So there's some extraordinary challenges that we're dealing with at the moment, and I would challenge anyone to say that we should be doubling down on this right now, because, the consequence of us not could have further catastrophic results with our workforce and our people, and potentially our customers who carry a huge amount of anxiety. We think about our people, but our customers are actually our people as well. And, I've seen marriage breakdowns, too many times through the process of construction, because it's a highly emotive industry, and there's a lot of anxiety that's attached to building a home, and they're people as well, and they've got their own challenges they've got to deal with, and there might be signals there that we could be able to assist them with. So I don't think it's just necessarily how we support our workforce, but I think our customers, who there's 220,000 of those every year across Australia, roughly, times two.
Yep.
There's a potential audience there as well that we need to make sure that we're listening. for those indications?
100%. And what we know from the mates training is, yes, we train pretty much exclusively for the construction and allied industries, but this has a community-wide effect. Because you take those skills home with you. You take them to your local footy club, you take them to your customers, you take them everywhere with you. So, I can give you one short example of how practical these skills are. We were training a group of apprentices about a year ago, Bob and myself, and as part of that life skills toolbox, we do what we call our mid-level training, which is a connector training. It's about identifying people with thoughts of suicide, actually asking somebody the question when we know what we're looking for, and then how do we get that person to support. So we trained a bunch of apprentices, and sometimes you never know what you're going to get because they're mandated to do that training, so there's not a huge amount of buy-in. But, Bob received a phone call at 10:30 that night from this young lad who wanted to let us know that he'd gone home to his share house and he'd seen his roommate just, looking particularly down in the dumps and what we call invitations, others might call warning signs. He'd noticed a few and he said, if I hadn't done the training that day, I wouldn't have asked him about suicide. I would have just let him go, maybe had a beer with him, gone to bed, and surely he would have been in a better mood the next day. And he goes, I asked him about it, and he was thinking about suicide. And he goes, so if I hadn't done that training with you that day, I wouldn't have known, and God knows what would have happened to him. So it was really humbling to sort of hear that and see how it, extends well past just our industry and the organisations we're training within. It's far-reaching. So you're right, Ryan. I think we need to double down now. Now more than ever, we see people under, immense pressures from all angles. You've got kids that are, more so interstate, that are constantly homeschooling or not able to attend their graduation after all that work, and, all these pressures that are coming from all different places. Now's the time we need people equipped to be able to offer that help, because we're seeing a health system that's more strained than ever as well. And we're still in a really fortunate position with mates, with the organisations that we refer out to for that specific professional help, alcohol and other drug help or relationship help. We're still seeing, we're able to get people in face-to-face within a week or two. And at the moment, it's months and months that people are waiting in the public system. So, yeah, we're really fortunate of that. But, yeah, now more than ever, we need people with those informal skills on the ground ready to offer help. Yeah. The one thing that I'm sort of somewhat always surprises me about residential construction is, having come and worked in commercial as well with Lendlease, and I truly believe Lendlease were an international leader when it come to work health and safety, and they did do quite a bit on mental health as well. Yeah,
but it always feels like residential's just a little bit like slow to adopt and move. I know you do most of your work in the commercial industrial sector, and yet residential we're still we're at the starting line.
Yep.
And that's true in so many instances. Work health and safety, we're playing catch up to where the industrial and commercial sector has been for many years. And I just wonder why we always take so long to adopt things that are so important, and this being one of them. And I almost want to throw the challenge out to every builder and say, guys, let's take a leadership position of this as a community, as an industry, and actually get on and do something and outperform.
Yeah.
Same goes for industry bodies, HIA, master builders who listen to this. Yeah. Accept the challenge.
Accept the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, we've been having a lot more conversations with master builders lately, which is fantastic, and training some of their people, which is excellent. But that's what we need. We need that buy-in from industry. And if you are out there listening and you're a small residential builder, and maybe you think that I don't have enough staff to get you to come out and train, we do trainings in our office. We're looking at finding spaces where we can have people come together, groups of subbies come together to attend a training. So don't let that put you off. Even if you're a sole trader and you want to get involved, you want to get some training, just contact us. We'll make it happen. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. Importantly, I touched on a point before that we don't want people to feel like this is conditional, that you can't reach out to mates during a time of need if you haven't done our training. There's no membership involved. There's nothing like that. It's as easy as a phone call, and we'll make sure that that person's supported. And like I said before, their immediate family as well. So that's really the main thing we want to push in this time of need. Yes, absolutely. Do some training, get yourself skilled, get your organisation skilled. We definitely want that, and I'll hold you accountable, Steve. I'll make sure you come along, mate. But
100%.
But yeah, really, it's the support. We want everyone to know about the 1300 number. We want everyone to have that in their mobile phone. So whether it's for themselves or they see somebody struggling at some point, they can just offer that number. And that real message of, what have you got to lose? It's free, it's confidential. what have you got to lose?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything to gain.
Absolutely.
So, like I said before, be more like Regent Homes, don't be like Kookaburra. Amanda, we appreciate you a lot. You're awesome. I think you're a fantastic ambassador for Mates in Construction as well. The way that you speak
Absolutely.
is excellent. Yeah, it's an honour meeting you and all the work that you're doing and Mates in Construction are doing. And we'll put all the information out there on how they can get in touch with Mates in Construction. If you like or follow this podcast, I encourage you to share it when it comes out. It's a really important message. Don't wait till it's too late. Ryan, Regent Homes, you and the boys there doing really, really good stuff. When I say boys, as in the owners, there's lots of women there as well. The whole team's doing an excellent job, mate. Well done on leading the way. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you very
mate.
much, Steve.
Cool.
Thank you, man.
Cheers, mate.